I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to live on a tropical island. The peace and the tranquility, just me and my thoughts lying under palm trees, the crystal clear Mediterranean waters, and well, here we've got an opportunity to give this a go. So in this video we're going to look at what happens when you spend 2 weeks on an island in Scum. Anyway, let's crack on and find out if this can be done. Some would say the ultimate survival challenge. Well, before we can survive on an island, we've got to get to it, and there are sharks in Scum, and I am genuinely shit scared of sharks in deep water. I don't know what it is. It terrifies me in real life, but I had to put on my big boy pants, and I've got to give this a go. I'm just praying to God that these sharks are a random spawn. It doesn't look that far away, does it? I was immediately freaked out when I realised you can see under the water. That was not good for my nerves, I can tell you that. I kept swimming and swimming, and truthfully, I did not seem to be getting very far very fast. And that gave ample opportunity for my friend to visit. Random chance of attack, my ass. This is just brutal. But I kept going, and hopefully that was a one-off. No, this bloody thing dragged me to the bottom of the ocean.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like that. So I respawned, and I was going to go to a new island, that one over there. But maybe this time I wouldn't swim to it. I got my running shoes on and headed towards it. Then I came across this Bambi, so steeled myself for an epic spear throw. Or not. After that success, I chopped up some sticks and crafted some rope. And with that, made myself an improvised backpack that I was going to need. Then I spotted a bird, so I tested out a bow I'd just made. Clearly, practice was needed. My soon-to-be home looked almost magical in the distance.
It has the mark of some ancient civilization.
It has the mark of Satan himself. Come, Sinbad, let us go back to the ship.
Now, I knew that I needed supplies, as I'd have to make a raft, so I set about looting the nearby town. After a lot of searching, I had found some nails and a couple of knives, but I was going to need more, as I knew that the small gap to the island could not be swum. To help with my storage problems, I made a small chest close to my likely future launch spot. Hopefully no one would find it. But I had several problems. The first was that the raft required a fair few items, but notably plastic bottles, a few of them, and this was going to take a while. Then I started chopping trees to make planks and rope, because the raft needed a lot of rope. But to find those remaining bottles, I had to sneak around town, avoiding those pesky players. This took several days. Then I put together the raft, and of course, as soon as I did that, realized that I needed an oar, so I made that. I also transferred to my backpack some items that I might find useful. Now, I was aware that we were 4 minutes into the video and I wasn't even on the island yet. Talk about clickbait. So I decided to go ahead with my crossing, but there was a swell running and memories of my shark mauling were still fresh in my mind. But I shrugged off my PTSD, muscled up, stood up straight and set off, because here I was going to prove to everyone that I was not merely a man but a superman, able to conquer my greatest fears, able to... Oh, my game crashed. Panic over, I logged back in and found that I was standing on my raft, so I continued on, but my game crashed again. Nonetheless, I did eventually find my way to the island. Finding no natives to greet me, I set out to explore my new home, and I guess I could say it was a big rock with shrubs and some trees. It all seemed a little bit barren. But I did see this rather cool shipwreck that would be worth exploring at some point. And at one end of the island was a World War II bunker. This would prove to be useful. After that, I found a small divot in the ground. This could be a good campsite. But then the skies closed in, and as I had no camp yet, I ran for the only shelter around, the bunker. And inside of that, I sheltered from the storm. But of course, I also did a little bit of searching, but I didn't find much. And when it began to clear, I did find one interesting thing. A very wet looking, decent sized poo. Nice. As the storm moved on, I went outside to view its passing, and I stumbled across a cave. And it looked like it went down a fair way. And at the bottom, there seemed to be water. So I scampered down and tested the water. I was hoping for a natural spring. Yeah, but I was horribly wrong on that one. That was a real shame. Later that day I came across my first puppet, or zombie, call it what you want. So I took it down with 2 well-placed arrows. Then I took my hacksaw to this buxom lady as I wanted to see what I could scavenge, and it turned out to not be much. So I moved on. Now I struck a problem. The only way I could collect rainwater was making rainwater collectors out of these plastic bottles, and I had none, so I had to go back to the mainland. Whereupon I was immediately set upon by a wolf, which simply tore me to shreds. So I spawned back in, ran to my body, searched it, put my gear on.
6.5 hours later.
And actually 6.5 hours is an understatement, because it took me ages to find those bloody bottles. Anyway, I made myself a chest at my campsite, and there you can see my rainwater collectors that I'd put down. They had better work. So I now decided to go ahead and get my shelter up. It took a bit of time, but it wasn't too bad. In my shelter, I crafted myself a bed, but forgot to record the completion of it. Now, to try and build things here, I needed to loot the bunker over and over, and I did sometimes find some good stuff, even if it was normally in terrible shape. But I was never sure what I might need, so I normally just took absolutely everything. Metal scraps. And a crappy knife. That was a big score.
A score like this happens once in a lifetime.
But as time passed, water was becoming a big problem. And in desperation, I started searching the foliage, and just sometimes I found a little nibble. Now, my stomach didn't like these snacks, but I just had to harden up. But the 1% gains from those snacks were not going to last. I was going to have to constantly balance food repulsion with tiny hydration gains. I'm not going to lie, this was the start of a painful period. I searched everything and found squat all, and the things I did find were mostly inedible. I searched on, over and over, not just this night, but for many nights ahead. It was tiresome, to say the least. And I really mean that. I did sometimes come across zombies, so I killed them, and then scavenged whatever I could from them, mostly rags. A lot of them. And in the meantime, I kept searching plants. Fortunately, my water bottles were filling up, So I drank from those, and that seemed to be working a treat. I did start working on an improvised fishing rod because that just made sense to do that. Now, by this stage, my rain collectors were working really well, and I was very happy. And as the sun came up, one of these stupid drones turned up. So I did what everyone does and tried to shoot it down. Now it was time to explore that. So I waited for daybreak, swam out to it, took all my clothes off, ran round on it in bare feet. That seemed to make sense at the time, but it turned out not to. Who knew that rusty metal on bare feet could hurt you? I looked around, didn't find anything, so went back to shore. Whereupon I just started hacking up sticks to make arrows, because quite simply I just needed a truck ton of them. But now, of course, food was a problem, so I was back to the usual, searching bushes. 26,000 bush searches later, I came to a final decision. I was not going to search any more bushes. I was sick to death of it. I was now only going to hunt to find my food. And the only thing to hunt here, of course, is seagulls. So I set about hunting them. And then this happened. I don't know what the hell that was, but I couldn't let it put me off my hunt. So I took my shot. Come on, are you little? Ah, oh, sake. But there was this tiny island just off the main island that had like palm trees on it. So I searched those and found some dates. These turned out to be pretty yummy. Then I had a pee. I got back onto the main island, ran around some more, and I was so hungry that despite my earlier promises, I was back to searching bushes again. But at least my water containers were working. That was helping out a lot. And then of course I realised, make a fish hook, I needed bottles and cans, which I did not have. Honestly, as the days passed, I pretty much just hung round my base camp, went looking for seagulls and drank the water, looted the bunker, because there wasn't too much else to do. There was in fact a lot of sitting around going on, particularly when it was raining, because I couldn't afford to get wet, so I just sat in my shelter and listened to the rain. But if I was quick enough, I could see the rain squalls disappearing, and they were pretty cool. And occasionally I'd come across a puppet, I'd kill it, chop it up, then look for more seagulls. There wasn't too many around. So to relieve the boredom, I went back to that cave and decided to go for a swim in the water, because maybe it led to another cave. I shook off my fear, and it was sizable, and went for a swim. And I swam. And I swam some more. But eventually, I chickened out and swam back. I noticed my chest was indicating red and my screen was greying out, but I got to the surface and then came across another drone and discovered that you cannot punch it. And as it flew away, yes, a seagull. So I immediately set off and hunt, and then realised I'd left my bow at the bottom of the cave. After retrieving that, I headed back to the surface. When I exited the cave, that happened. Apparently starving for too long, and you pass out. But I wasn't out for long. I quickly leapt back to my feet and continued my hunt. But I couldn't find that bloody seagull. So I did what anyone does and just sat around, hoping that maybe I'd see something of interest. And in the meantime, well, I would just loot the bunker more for about the 50th time, and hopefully I would come across something of some interest. But every now and then in a game, a miracle happens. I took my shot. This was going to be the tastiest seagull anyone has ever eaten. I took the carcass back, cooked it over the fire, and then scoffed the whole lot down in one go because, frankly, I was really hungry. And I washed it all down with some fresh water from my rain collectors. As I was about to head out to the shipwreck again, I saw another seagull, so quickly put my gear back on and chased off after it. I hunted it across the island, was about to take my shot, and yet again the little bastard flew away. So I got back to the shipwreck, and this time swam out to it and dived down deep and searched some of the containers that I'd seen earlier on. I spent quite a long time under the water. I thought a shark would turn up, but it didn't, and I found absolutely bloody nothing. So I got back to my camp, warmed myself up, and at some stage, I don't know when it was, I was losing track of time. I got jumped by a zombie, but I chopped it up. Found another zombie, shot it down, took a couple of shots at a passing seagull, same old result, and then went, maybe that cave that I swam in, maybe I could find the other entrance to it. So I went for a swim, and I did find the cave entrance, but frankly it was too spooky. So I returned to the surface, sat down, and just watched those birds. But I could only watch them so long, so I sprinted down trying to get one. I came across one in the rocks, took my shot, nailed it, chopped it up, cooked it, and ate it. Then I returned to just sitting around again. And I am talking, I sat around a lot. I even lay down a lot. But even a diet of seagull and figs will eventually go through your system. So after desecrating my island, here is a beautiful 30 seconds of a lovely sunset, and we'll come back for more. Yes, the sunsets in Scum are fantastic, but there was becoming a problem. Footwear was becoming an issue. The only footwear I now had was that I looted off the puppets, and it was in pretty poor condition. But nonetheless, I had to run around the island hunting for, you guessed it, seagulls. And more seagulls. And every now and then, you produce a miracle. Chopped it up and ate it. Then I watched the clouds come in. But of course, clouds bring rain. And even in the rain, the seagulls teased me. But I ran back to base And there was a zombie trying to steal stuff from my chest. So I took him down. Then I stole his boots. By now, my chest was stuffed full of absolute garbage. Sitting by the fire was about the only interesting thing.
6 months later.
The days were becoming really routine. They pretty much consisted of just running around the island, killing zombies, looting the bunker, bringing everything back to my base, treating my foot abrasions because my boots kept breaking, but many rag collection days later, because now I was obsessed with collecting rags, because yes, my end part of my mission on this island was to produce a tent. Because what more could I make? Let's face it. So I put the blueprint down, filled it up with some rags, treated my foot abrasions with some of those rags, chopped down trees, chopped up sticks, crafted rope, chopped down more trees, chopped up more sticks, chopped down more trees, stuffed it all into the tent, and eureka, check that baby out. That is pretty damn epic. Now, I'm not going to say I spent 2 weeks here. It was probably 10 to 14 days because, frankly, I just lost count. But there isn't much more I can do. This is what it's like to live on an island in Scum. It isn't easy, and you scrape a living by, and this is about as much as you're going to achieve. So I brought everything into the tent, and I was pretty happy, and I decided that I would perhaps finish up maybe where we all begin. So I stripped naked, put my crappy boots on, and ran back to the shoreline. It was good to feel the rain on my naked skin. And as I stood there, I waved goodbye to those people on the mainland playing Scum properly. And then I surrendered myself to the heavens and waited for my deity to give me approval to finish the game. And he did. Hey, thanks for watching. Greatly appreciated. Please hit the big kiwi in the middle to subscribe. I would really love that. And maybe I'll see you in the next chapter.